Okay.
Yeah, it just cuts to whoever's talking basically. So.
Ah, I see.
So, Guy Pearce, you star as Cleve Jones in the ABC limited series When We Rise, which is a very ambitious retelling of the gay rights movement in America. I want to start by asking you about the significance of telling this story now. Why is this story pertinent for today?
Well, I mean, I guess there's all sorts of reasons why it's pertinent today, but I think ultimately it's always relevant. It's always a story that should be told. It's always something that we should be reminded of. I mean, any adversity or any fight that has to have had occurred for the liberation of any minority or any group of people who are misunderstood or oppressed or whatever, I think does need to be told over and over. Just because of the sheer fact that younger generations are perhaps unaware and people become complacent. So I think, it was interesting. I saw somebody speaking about in regard to women's rights, saying Donald Trump is actually the best thing that's happened to women's rights. And the interviewer said, what, really? What are you talking about? And she said, well, the reality is it's really woken a lot of women up. A lot of people sort of look back to, the bra burning period and think their parents and their grandparents did all of that, when in actual fact, women's rights, for example, need to be stood up for now as much as they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100, however. And I think the same for LGBT rights, or any community that is under the pump, for want of a better expression, not heard, misunderstood. I think looking at the new administration here, and even looking at our laws and rules in Australia, gay marriage, same-sex marriage is not legal in Australia yet. So, which I just find astounding, and I'm hugely embarrassed about. So, stories like When We Rise, I think, when they're brought to people's attention, it makes people refocus. There's so much we have to focus on in the world today, and there's so much that we're exposed to constantly. It's hard really to know where to focus. And you know what it's like. It just takes someone to walk up to you and say, hey, we've got a problem over here. And suddenly your sense of compassion or your sense of consideration is alerted to it, and you act on it, So it's, good timing.
Absolutely. So you play Cleve Jones in the show. Tell us a little bit about who Cleve Jones is.
Well, he's a fighter. he's an extremely exuberant and passionate man who, as was, as many people probably became aware of in the portrayal by Emile Hirsch in the film Milk, worked for Harvey Milk at a young age, back in the early 70s. And was a young man from Arizona who realized he was gay at a very young age, and knew that he had to get out because the community around him didn't support. He could tell, and obviously knew that he wasn't supported, and moved his way to San Francisco. And there, where a lot of young gay men really were first able, I suppose, on some level, to get together and actually celebrate and fight for who they are as people. Began this long journey, and Cleve continues to fight for all sorts of rights these days, not just gay rights. But he, through the AIDS crisis in the 80s, that obviously still goes on today, Cleve survived. Through all the riots that he's been involved in, he survived. Through all the hurdles and adversities that he's faced, he survived. So to have him there with us on set was one thing. To play him it's beyond an honor. It's intimidating, but he's a man with a great sense of humor, and he has an important story to tell. And as I say, to have him there on set with us, there were times. I mean, what was really interesting was, it's very easy for Cleve to be taken back to all these moments in his life, and here we are telling a story that represents his life and some of his life and the people around him. And, you know, it's about getting that right. It's about making that a story that can be told in a short period of time. So you're concentrating on getting that stuff right, and you forget in a way that, you know, it can take him back to those moments very easily and quickly. And so we're doing scenes, for example, where me playing Cleve Jones, I'm telling my father about my boyfriend and how we met around the dinner table, and there's real Cleve standing behind the monitor crying, remembering that moment. So it really was quite an experience playing Cleve and just being involved in this project, because it's so present and so passionate and so emotional for everybody involved. And, you know, just to talk to Cleve about all those men, all those friends of his that died just through the HIV and AIDS crisis brings him to tears continually, you know.
Right, and one of the extraordinary things about the show is that you see the span of this person's life, not just his life, but Ken Jones, Roma Guy, a lot of people in the show. You see how they started out and then became activists, and a lot of the changes that came into their lives. Can you talk about, I guess, the development of their lives over the spans of these 4 episodes?
Well, I think the obvious thing is that they just dig deeper and deeper and deeper continually, because, you know, I've never had to fight for things the way they've fought for things. I know in my life the things that I've had to fight for. I have a sister with an intellectual disability, and I've had to fight a number of times for her in all sorts of ways. And, you know, to fight and to take 2 steps forward and then be forced 1 step back can really knock the wind out of your sails, as it were. And to see Roma and Dion and Cleve and Ken, as well as all the other people that I mentioned in the show, that are even not mentioned in the show, but, you know, who Cleve would talk about. And to talk to Cleve about, you know, hitting hurdles and just wanting to give up, feeling like it was pointless, and, you know, feeling like the negativity and the narrow-mindedness and the bigotry that continually kept coming towards him, and just wanting to give up, and yet he would dig deeper and be able to actually continue on and find a new way. Just that. I mean, they're battle scarred, these people. You know, they're really battle scarred, and to watch. You know, we made the show a year ago. So, you know, April, May, June last year, and of course the 2016 campaign is underway, and there's Donald Trump, you know, and his other Republican counterparts fighting for their position, and there's Hillary and Bernie fighting for their position, and, you know, you're having these moments when Cleve's going, we need to be careful because Trump may get in, and of course everybody's there saying, well, no, he's never going to get in, and Cleve's like, got to be careful. You just cannot trust anything, you know. So, of course, you know, we all know the outcome. So I was the first person I thought of when Trump got in was Cleve, because I saw clearly on his face in all those months leading up to the election when we were shooting what it would mean for him and what sort of fight would then be required if Trump got in. I saw all of that on Cleve's face. And so, of course, once Trump got in, I just went, wow, I'm picturing Cleve now just sort of, you know, collapsed on a floor, just going, wow, how are we going to beat this? How are we going to deal with this? So, you know, again, it's another massive hurdle for the LGBT community, and Cleve is always on that precipice of just wanting to walk away, give up, but knowing he can't, knowing that he's a fighter and he'll continue to fight. So, yeah, what a life.
Indeed, and I mean, within the show, you see him and the other characters persevering against these really incredible odds. I mean, the AIDS crisis, fighting for gay marriage. And I spoke to Dustin Lance Black about this. You know, oftentimes in films like this, you only see stories of the people who died. but it's extraordinary to see the people who survived and who continue to survive and fight for their rights.
And that was important to Lance. It was important, you know, I think when they talked about doing this, obviously it's about recognizing those that have fallen along the way, those that have died, those that have been killed in riots by police, those that have been bashed to death by, you know, homophobic bigots, those who have died of AIDS, those who have died of drug overdoses, either accidentally on purpose or on purpose, you know, because everything was just too much for them. But what was really important for Lance, Dustin Lance Black, was to tell the story from the point of view of some people that are still with us. So that I think he just really wanted to infuse the story with the importance of continuing to fight, and not that just that this was something that happened and there are victims and now here we are in the present and there's sort of nothing we can do about it, you know. So, and of course, as I say, it was just incredibly moving for us. You'd look up, you know, we'd be filming Roma Guy and Diane's wedding, and in the crowd, in the actual audience of extras that were there for us filming, the real Roma and Diane in the scene, you know, watching their own wedding be reenacted, and Ken was there and Cleve was there. It was just the sense of family, the bond between them, that also immediately filtered out amongst all of us. I mean, it's a difficult thing to get across in talking about it. You know, you really sort of have to be there, I suppose. But, you know, I think when you're in a crisis, when you're in any sort of difficult situation, even on a very minor level, it's amazing how we as human beings sort of band together. And if that's for a short moment, it's, you know, it can be 5 out of 10 on a scale. But when you look at a lifetime of supporting each other and a lifetime of relying on each other, helping each other, fighting for each other, not conspiring, but trying to work out the best way to face the adversity that these people have had to face, you see that bond that just is so deep. It really is like family. I mean, that's what they say in the show, you know, we are family. Mm-hmm. And we have to stick together. And I mean, a lot of these people were even ostracized by their own actual families, parents that when I can't cope with a gay son, I'm never speaking to you again. You know, so really just very emotional stuff.
And you definitely get that sense of camaraderie within the show. Was it a difficult shoot? Because you guys cover so much ground, I think about 40 years worth of history. And I mean, so many characters and locations in about 6.5, 7 hours. Was it difficult getting this together?
Well, I mean, you know, that's probably more of a question for the producers. It probably was really difficult. Yeah. And obviously, when you are covering a long period of time, there are many different ways you can do it as far as how you age the actors up. And, you know, of course, you want it to look very real. You don't want to suddenly have people with too much prosthetic makeup on and it being distracting, etc. And I think the idea of having a younger group of actors play these characters in the first sort of 10, 15, 20 years, and then switch it to us with a 5 or 10 year kind of hiatus in the story was really clever. And, you know, obviously there were transitions to be made. I mean, we see Cleve, for example, living in Palm Springs, kind of at death's door, trying to deal with the medication, you know, trying to survive, trying to deal with all this AIDS, HIV medication that he's got to take, and really not coping with the whole process, losing energy. And so there were things that we had to discuss about how I looked at that time and you know, sort of aging. But then once he starts to get a bit better, he's got to kind of look a bit better, but we still need him to look like he's aging. So, you know, it wasn't tough, but it was just stuff we needed to discuss. And, you know, I think the important thing was to just try and portray this this wisdom that is that you just can't ignore. When people have been through what these guys have been through, it's just deep in their bones who they are. It forms who they are. And, you know, it was really important, as just on a performance level, to feel like you could infuse these characters with the history that they've experienced. You know, that we may have covered 40 years, but it feels like for all of them, they've battled for 200 years to sort of, you know, to be the people that they are. And and to still find a candle burning, and that joy and that hope, and that that they can still find love, and that everything that they've done has been worth it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was all, what was tough for me, actually, I think, was trying to understand all of that history. I mean, there's so much that I don't know. There really is. I mean, I'm not an expert on history generally, but I'm certainly not an expert on that history. So trying to absorb very quickly whatever information I could, so that I wasn't bogged down with kind of homework, but I was taking things in that were useful for me to be able to play the character. But of course, my natural fascination was to absorb everything I possibly could. But you really need a lot more time than I had to understand fully what's gone on. So it's a tricky line that you tread as an actor sometimes, where you need to be convincing, and yet you're only hanging on by your fingernails as far as what you actually know.
Is it exciting being able to play a character for that, I guess, extended period of time? I mean, you did Mildred Pearce previously, which you won the Emmy for, another ambitious limited series that was very cinematic. I mean, is it exciting being able to portray a character for that extended length of time?
Yes, I mean, I think the beauty of a longer format is that you do get to delve in more. I mean, I love making films, I really do, and I love the fact that you've got to concentrate on getting your whatever's the most important part of your story there in an hour and a half or 2 hours. And but it is sort of luxurious. You've actually got to remind yourself while you're shooting that you're actually allowed to spend time on these details that you're portraying, because there's another few hours after this still in the story, and so you've got to change your format a little bit in your mind as an actor when you're working in this form. And I'm sure if you do a long-running TV series, I mean, I've done long-running TV series before in Australia, one for 4 years and another one for 4 years. I mean, certainly not of the I don't want to say not of the quality of this, but not of the sort of power of this kind of show, an importance, I think, So, but the great thing, obviously, in working with Gus Van Sant and Dustin Lance Black, is that their knowledge of this world is not just their knowledge of this world, but their knowledge of this world and how to portray it is really, quite in depth. So I just felt like I was in great hands the whole time. And Lance is so relaxed as well. It's really funny. He's filming this really intense show, and he's just so relaxed about the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you worked with a lot of great directors throughout this show. I mean, what did they give you that really helped you?
Well, trust, I think, really trust. I mean, it's the thing that as an actor I'm always looking for anyway. You need to feel like someone looks into your eyes and goes, I know you're able to deliver what we need. As soon as you feel that, then great, you're off and running. So, Tommy Shalami was a really great energy on set. He really he's very passionate about all the details of each character, each moment in character, and that it's that a good director is a good reminder of the things that you're kind of forgetting yourself. You can be sort of caught up with lots of little moments, but sometimes it's a good director will just remind you of the bigger picture and where we see a character, where they've come from and where they are now, and energetically what we need in the show at this moment in time. So, they were just all very open-minded and good communicators.
Before we go, I did want to ask you about your Emmy win for Mildred Pearce and what that recognition meant for you.
Well, it was really exciting. I never won anything in my life, so it was just like, it was completely surreal. And it felt, it felt really great. It felt particularly great because working with Kate Winslet, working on a James M. Cain novel, working for HBO, and working for Todd Haynes, as well as the great producers and the team that were on that film, on that show, it was such a fantastic experience, the making of it. I was so excited. I remember when my agent called me and said, so Todd Haynes, Kate Winslet, HBO, Mildred Pearce, they're interested in you for, and I think before he even finished the sentence, I said, just say yes. Just say yes. You just know when a group of people get together that it's going to be something that you want to be part of. I mean, you never really know if it's going to end up being any good or not, but you're pretty sure if it's Kate Winslet, HBO, and Todd Haynes. So, the experience was great for me. To get that Emmy was, as I say, very surreal. I've always had a strange, ambivalent feeling about awards when it comes to performances and anything artistic, to be honest. So I still feel that. I won't deny the excitement of the night, because suddenly all this attention is on you, and for at least the 10 minutes that when your award is presented and announced. What was really nice, actually, was that a group of us, James Woods and Paul Giamatti and I, there was a few of us that kept being nominated for different things, and each one of us sort of won. Someone won a SAG, I won the Emmy, someone won the Golden Globe, and so it was, in a way, it was not. We sort of shared it all around. It was a nice little sort of bonding moment amongst Peter Dinklage and a group of us. So look, it was very exciting, but I'm always very careful. Well, not always. I've only ever won one award, but I feel like I'm always very careful. If something really fantastically positive occurs, I just I like to try and look at it from that Buddhist point of view and go, well, don't get carried away with this. Just appreciate it. Have gratitude and continue to try and do the good work as if nothing has changed. And on some level, nothing has changed. You just carry on and get on with it and feel appreciative.
Well, Guy Pearce, thank you so much, and congratulations on When We Rise. Thank you for taking the time to chat.
No problem. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Have a good day.